there's a massive drive towards globalization. That's a 787. It's not a Dreamliner. It's a 777. The batteries work on that one. If you start looking at that plane, you see that the parts of the plane come from all over the world. This diagram on the right-hand side is color-coded so that the darker the color, the greater the level of competitiveness of that country. Now, if you start analyzing what it takes for a country to be competitive and to be integrated globally, it requires a couple of things. You've got to get your infant mortality right. You've got to get your adult mortality right. You've got to get protection of assets. You've got to reduce crime. You've got to manage your corruption downward. You've got to, I'm glad I put that last word in. You've got to open up trade. You've got to do all these things. Right? You do all of these things, and suddenly you have a country that suddenly is unleashed. Well, here's a really amazing thing. This is what Africa's been doing. Very quietly, wars have ended. Very quietly, famines are slowly ending. Very quietly, countries are integrating. Very quietly, agreements are being signed. Over here, these are the these are the Southern African trade agreements. These are the trade agreements that cover the whole of Africa. So very slowly, what's starting to happen is Africa is starting to be integrated and is becoming remarkably competitive as currencies reach the level that they should reach, and as trade barriers are reduced, and as the borders are opened up and it becomes easier to do business, you can start to see foreign companies coming in. Now, that's the first big trend, is Africa's becoming remarkably competitive as a center for doing business. At the same time, there's massive urbanization happening. That's the global urbanization trend, and this talks to what the biggest cities in the world are going to be. And you can see this move from the west to the east. Huge shift towards the east in terms of big cities. What's very clear is that most of the global growth in the next 10 years is going to come from cities. And in many cases, cities that don't even exist yet as mega cities. Now, when you start tracking the trends on mega cities, that's Lagos. Lagos is going to be one of the biggest cities in the world. That's a trend showing you what some of the biggest and fastest growing cities in the world are. They're in Africa. There's a rate of urbanization in Africa. Urbanization in Africa already equals the urbanization rate in China. It's already happened. And it's continuing. It hasn't stopped. So Africa is going to become a remarkably urbanized area. And you can see the stats talk to exactly that. So massive move into the cities, massive opportunities for infrastructure, massive opportunities to do business within a very concentrated space. Logistically, huge advantages. Of course, who's going to build these cities? At one stage, China was building a city the size of Philadelphia every 30 days. China became the biggest consumer of coal, aluminum, copper, steel, cement. I think you're going to see China being replaced by Africa. At the same time that that's happening, disposable income in Africa is starting to rise quite dramatically. And because of the fact that very little manufacturing happens in Africa, but there's a huge demand, insatiable demand for manufactured products, the import of manufactured products into Africa is rocketing. So why is Kenyan Airways inaugurating flights into China? Why are they building an Aeropolis in Nairobi? Why are they putting their footprint out into the rest of Africa? Because there's a huge flow of manufactured products from the East directly into Africa. Because Africa has just got this disposable income. And of course, Africa is not debt burdened. Part of the reason, thank heavens, no one would lend us any money. Turned out that was a good thing. And of course, because of the difficulty of proving ownership of your house, it's hard to get a mortgage. Okay, so in a very perverse way, some of the regulations acted to actually reduce the level of debt. And Africa is highly cash-centric and not very credit-centric, which means the ability to borrow in the future is huge. The borrowing capacity of Africa is massive, should you wish to do so. And by the way, it's instructive to look at what's happening in India, where the same is true. The borrowing capacity of India is huge, and people are now beginning to borrow to, in fact, consume. And over time, that will happen. Here, the challenge in Africa is this massive difficulty in moving product. So if you start benchmarking transportation costs between different parts of the world, Africa, by far, by an order of magnitude, is actually too expensive to move products in. So the problem is the roads, the bridges, the tolls, the tariffs, the fuel costs, maintenance, warehousing, logistics are a problem. Half of the cassava in Ghana rots on the trees because there's no mechanism to harvest it in time and treat it on site and put it into a warehouse and put in place the pesticide to prevent it from being eaten by rats and packaging it and getting it to market to be able to sell it. The logistics problem. the same time that all this is happening, folks, there's a massive move in the technology space. And this is really an amazing story. Because never mind all the other stuff I'm sharing with you, the technology story is an amazing story. So worldwide, the amount of information is doubling every 72 years. Worldwide, the adoption curve for technology is rising. Worldwide, the cost of technology is dropping, and the power of technology is doubling roughly every 18 months. Worldwide, things that were previously transported will in the future be transmitted. So in the past, I transported my DVD. Today, I stream my DVD. In the past, I transported my music CD. In the future, I download my music. In the past, I transported my newspaper. In the future, I read it by going onto a web or pulling it on an app. In the past, I went to go and fetch my money. Today, it gets transferred to me electronically. In the past, I needed a physical share certificate. Today, they email that to me. What was previously transported will in the future be transmitted. That's a huge issue. It means anything that can be virtualized really presents a phenomenal disruptive opportunity for someone. So the world fundamentally is changing because of technology, more so in Africa than probably anywhere else. In Africa, more people have access to mobiles than clean drinking water. You go to death by PowerPoint, you're going to have death by infographics today. Okay? In South Africa, 67% of all smartphones, but by the way, 1/4 of all phones in this country are smartphones. 67% of them are BlackBerry. This is a company that people are saying is going to go bust. South Africans have a love affair with BlackBerry. What do you think the most popular phone in Africa is? Nokia, 60% market share. 60% market share. That's dominant. Vodacom doesn't even have 60% market share in this country. 1.25 million handsets are sold in South Africa every month. 25 million new subscribers are signed up every quarter by telcos in Africa. Those numbers are just mind-blowing when you start analyzing actually where the world is going. If you look at mobile money plays, this is the ability to move money on your cell phone, save money on your phone, borrow on your phone, send money on your phone, pay on your phone, cash out on your phone, pay your bills on your phone, buy insurance on your phone, get funeral policies on your phone. In 2001, there were 2 systems running in the world. By 2011, we were looking at 74 different mobile money systems, which means we don't need banks. Okay? It means, what do you need banks for? I can do all this on my phone. And for most people, that's all they need. Not everyone needs a warrant. Not everybody needs equity trading. Okay? I need goat feed. How can I pay for that? Right? If you start analyzing the number of mobile applications being used in different countries, this is the increase in the number of mobile applications being used in sub-Saharan Africa. This is the increase in income by farmers by using mobile applications. The Kenyan fisherman radios in on his phone and says, this is what I've caught. Which harbor should I sail to that will give me the best price? The Ugandan, Tanzanian, and Kenyan tea and sugar grower is doing a similar thing with his crop, saying, where can I get the best price for this using mobile technology? Folks, we have needs in Africa that we don't have in the rest of the world. And therefore, the phone's being used in ways nobody ever imagined, because there are needs that we've never seen. And here's the real problem. South Africa doesn't have these needs. So the chances that South Africa is going to innovate this is very, very low. South Africa is going to innovate automated systems for security for homes. Armed response. That weird car security system that blows flame out the bottom. G5 guns. So necessity is the mother of innovation. And what that says is, whoever suffers the pain will develop the solution. There's a reason that $16 billion is going into Kenya, into Nairobi, because they are suffering the pain. So they're pumping huge amounts of money into developing these systems. Now, you start looking at some of the numbers here. They're actually amazing. Africa's growing at 5%. If you start looking at all the countries around Africa, some of them are growing at 10%. There are now more mobile subscribers in Africa than in Europe. If you look at the way in which Africa has globalized its economy, it's opened up dramatically in the last 10 years. Nokia is the biggest brand. So it's really weird. It's like, stop looking at the West. Nokia is dying in the West, and BlackBerry is dying in the West. In South Africa, it's 67% market share. BlackBerry. In Africa, 60% market share Nokia. It is inappropriate to be looking at the West. The total market share of Apple in South Africa among smartphones is 4%. And everyone's going crazy about iPhone apps. I have an iPhone. I love it. It's really great. I am not your demographic. Okay? This is the demographic. It's a different demographic.